showrunners and writers, David Benioff. Alexander Wu. And D.B. Weiss. And also joining us is the director of the first 2 episodes, Tsang. Just for the record. Again, it's a series that manages to be both epic and intimate, which is such a hard thing to pull off. And I know it's based on Saoirse Liu's acclaimed trilogy of novels, which many people thought could not be adapted for the screen. And Dan and David, you have experience with, bringing the unadaptable to the screen. And Alex, you obviously have experience with this genre from your work on True Blood of the Terror. Can you talk about how you kind of formed this super team of producers and writers, how you came together and what attracted you to the project?
Well, it's all Peter Friedlander's fault. So I don't know where you are, Peter.
He's the one person I can actually see. He's right there.
Yes, there he is. Peter mentioned the books to me and Dan, and we read them and fell in love with them and wanted to do it. And then I think he separately invited you in, right?
Yeah.
What's your story?
Well, you tell your story.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Alex.
Yes. Who are you?
I really like Game of Thrones, by the way. I've never, it's never, in these 4 years, I've never actually said that.
When we had the first season premiere of Game of Thrones, George Martin was sitting in front of us with Paris, his longtime partner, and right before the screen, right before the lights went out and the screen went bright and everything, she turned around and said, "I really hope you didn't fuck it up." So when you're talking about like the pressure, yes, we definitely feel that. Shishan Liu isn't here today, so he won't know for a while if we fucked it up. But yeah, Peter Friedlander gave us the books. We loved them. We thought we really want to do this, and then a few months later, Alex.
Yeah, I mean, the origin story is very similar because Peter called me up and said, there's this project. I can't tell you what it is, but Dan and David are involved, and we think you might be really interested in it. And we came together on sometime like February 2020, and that was the first time we had met, even though we had overlapped at HBO for a few years. So because True Blood, tail end of True Blood, and beginning of Game of Thrones were around the same time. And a week later was shutdown. And so we didn't see each other again for almost 2 years.
At what point did they tell you what it was? At least by shooting, I hope.
This is the first time I've seen it.
Yeah. They finally revealed to you what the secret project
was pretty good.
Yeah. But when you do look at something like this, that's such a huge undertaking, where do you even begin? I mean, how long did you sit in that room and bounce ideas off each other? Where to even start?
Well, the room was a Zoom, and we had 18 months to sit in it with just the 3 of us initially, and later Rose and Madri joined us. But it was there wasn't much else to do, and there wasn't anywhere else to go. So we started by just reading the books again and talking about them a lot, and talking about how one of the main things we needed to figure out was that all 3 books, they begin at the same time, and all the main characters in the books are alive at the same time, and sometimes in the same place, but they don't all know each other. So first thing to figure out was how to come up with a way to tell the story where all of the main characters had a history together and a backstory together, and cared about each other, and had different strong thoughts about each other. So that was a big part of the adaptation. Another part was figuring out how to, it's a very science-heavy book, and books aren't television, and you don't want people to be pausing and having to Wikipedia every 5 minutes. So it's about how to get the information across in a way that made it engaging and exciting, and told the story without drawing upon more scientific understanding than the average viewer had.
That's what I keep telling people. Because I'm going to brag for a minute here. I've been able to see all 8 episodes, and you're in for such a treat. And I keep letting people know they make me feel smart. Like I could actually follow what was going on, and that's quite an achievement, I have to say.
Well, I was pretty bad at science in high school, like really bad. And so it makes sense to me at a certain point when these guys are writing something, if I read it and I'm like, oh, I get that. I think most of the audience will. And then when you're talking about like how do you get this on screen? I mean, one of the biggest decisions ultimately was who the hell is going to direct the first 2 episodes, and that was a tough one because we knew we needed someone great because it's the first 2 episodes. We needed someone bilingual who's going to be able to do these scenes, some of which take place in the 1960s in China, some of which are present day, and we needed someone who's going to set the tone for the whole series visually and introduce the characters. And the 3 of us saw a movie called Better Days, and we thought, well, we got to hire that guy, and luckily Derek was available.
Well, I'm actually curious because Derek, we should call it the Academy Award nominated Better Days. Am I wrong, or is this your first experience with serialized television?
Yes, it is.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you went big.
It's a huge change coming from feature film to such a big show. But I mean, like, because I think David, Dan, and Alex made it a lot easier because they're such amazing people, and it just really felt like a very good collaborative environment, and I think we hit it off really early. Yeah.
So did you just get this call out of the blue? Saying,
Yeah, like my agent called me. He's like, "Oh, I've got something to really talk to you. This is really important." I'm like, "Okay." So because he rarely called me straight. Usually just messaged me, and then so I'm like, "Okay, what's going on?" He's like, "Yeah, you know, 3 Body Problem." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, of course," because the book is huge in China. So like, yeah, you know who's doing it? Like, yeah, I know the guys from Game of Thrones. It's in good hands. So what's up? They're like, they want to talk to you. I was like, no. Because like I never really thought that I would be able to be on board, be involved in creating this. So I was just over the moon. So I was really excited.
And you really are. You're setting the tone with these first 2 episodes. You're setting the look. You're setting the feel. Can you talk about some of the conversations that the 4 of you had about what you wanted to establish right out of the gate?
Well, I mean, I think it's not just me. I mean, because there's other directors involved. I think we all work together to make sure that we can create a look that's right for all these different elements of the story, because there's so much going on. There's the China in the 60s, 70s, and then there's also the mystery, the thriller aspect of it that's really driving the audience to find out what's really happening. So there's all these different elements. I think we all, not just the 4 of us here, but with the other directors, we all sat down and really, created something that we felt it's appropriate for the show.
And you
is what Netflix acquired the rights to was the English language adaptation of 3 Body Problem. There exists a Chinese language adaptation, and so it didn't make a whole lot of sense for us to have the whole show be in English and have everyone be in China, and everyone be Chinese. But it also afforded us a great opportunity because this is a story about how humanity as a whole confronts this existential threat from another civilization. And so if we're going to tell a global show, we might as well, globalize the cast. What that means is there were still some characters that were at the heart very, very Chinese, and in their philosophy and in how they embody certain philosophies. So the character of Ye, of course, her story is almost entirely intact, and Dasha as well as Jin, we are still very much Chinese, though in the case of Dasha and Jin, they're Chinese diaspora rather than Chinese. But then the rest of our cast is from all over the world. We have from Latin America, African American actor, and we have European actors. So it really does feel like it's the world confronting this outside threat. One of the toughest things in adapting from the novel form to the screen is that a lot of ideas that can come that just appear on a page, you can't just slap and cut and paste them into a script. And the first thing, I really think it is kind of the first thing that we all kind of agreed on we had to do in adapting this was to get our characters in order, and we all came from different mediums before television, and we all approached things through character. I think that was one of the secrets of Game of Thrones, was that it was a great character story on top of everything else. And so the characters, I think, embodied the philosophies in the show, and I think that's how we approached it. And being invested in the characters, what takes you from one episode to the next, to the next, to the next, and hopefully into the next season, and the next season after that. And before you know it, you've been with these characters for a decade or so, and it feels like they're your friends. You feel lost when the characters die or when the show is over. That's a very powerful. The suspension of disbelief is very, very powerful, and that's, I think, what makes the greatest television, really get under your skin. The actors here who have played characters for a long time know this. People come up to you like they know you, and that's because they really believe, they're real, and they've come into your living rooms, every week for a decade or so. So that's where we approached it. It's like that's the philosophies that are in the books have to be embodied in the characters. So that's why we did so much work on the characters from the start.
Ready? Camera. One more here, guys.